Hey everybody, welcome back to TechOdyssey. So this video is not exactly the most pleasant topic in the world, and it's something I guess we probably all need to talk about at least at some point in time, and that is the end of BlackBerry 10. Now BlackBerry 10 has effectively been mothballed. A lot of the stuff has kind of been slowing down and dying off. I mean, you probably notice all the notifications you get on your phone from Gmail not wanting to access anymore. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and ultimately in January of 2022, it's no longer going to be supported by BlackBerry, and that's of course been public information for a long time. And I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it a lot. And you've probably seen a lot of my videos over the years. I focus a lot when I talk about BlackBerry on the BlackBerry 10 devices. They have been so near and dear to me. I've enjoyed them for so long. And I mean, who can't love this? The BlackBerry Passport is one of the most iconic phones ever made in the history of mankind. But this is what I want to talk about in this video. And yeah, so before we get into it, I do want to say if this is your first time stopping by the channel, thank you for being here. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. Let's talk about BlackBerry 10. So here I have one of my most favorite BlackBerry 10 devices. It's my white and gold special edition Q10. Now, the Q10 really should have been the first phone that they let off with, but BlackBerry, I think, had a little bit of an identity crisis. They went back to the drawing board a few times, and they finally came out with BB10. And BlackBerry 10 was an amazing operating system when it came out. It just didn't have a whole lot more than an operating system. And they promised so many different apps were going to be on board when they first started, but they really weren't there. Like, I came home the day after I bought it and I was so happy. I was setting it up and I'm like, I have Facebook and Foursquare, but there wasn't a whole lot there. But that was okay because I had a modern BlackBerry. It had the best browser experience you could possibly ask for. It had like full browser support. It was really, really good. It wasn't that garbage that they had over on Safari with Apple. You know, it was really good. So like, it took a long time for BlackBerry 10 to come out of the Easy Bake Oven. But once it came out, it was fully cooked. It just didn't have any sprinkles on top. And that's largely what ended up killing it because nobody wanted to pick it up. It had one of the highest, like the Z10 when it came out, which was the very first phone, and it was a really nice looking phone. I mean, I still have mine. I have my original Z10. I forgot to bring it out here for the video, but I have my original Z10 I bought at T-Mobile. Still largely runs pretty well. I mean, it's held up well. That's one thing BlackBerry has never really been dinged for, at least BlackBerry proper, is their devices lasted for so long. The hardware, the keyboards on these things, best in class. I mean, of course, there weren't a lot of people making physical keyboards, but they made such good keyboards. It's like nobody else wanted to try. And if you never got your hands on one of these, the BlackBerry Porsche P9983, which is based off the Q10, I gotta say, this is probably the best keyboard I've ever typed on in my life. I totally love it. But yeah, they started off, BlackBerry 10, they came out, lots of fanfare, and then there wasn't much. The party was over and we were left with these phones that were really secure, that didn't have much on them, and it took forever. Eventually, they were able to collaborate with Amazon. They were able to get the Android emulation on there. They were able to get us some apps, and that was good. But there were always workarounds. There were always fixes. It felt almost kind of like a project operating system if you wanted to do mainstream things on it. And while most of us didn't care, because we were just happy, we had our security, we had our BlackBerry phones, they were the best for typing, they were the best for sending emails and text messages, they were the best for surfing the internet, they were the best at so many things. And it was one of those things too where the specs didn't really matter. And they tried to make it about the specs. Like, people were like, oh, it's only got this, it's only got that. But then you pulled up BlackBerry 10 with this 2 gigs of RAM, and it ran seamlessly. It wasn't like on the Android counterpart side where you had to have 3 gigs of RAM and the fastest flagship processor you could get, or it was a trash phone. So, I don't know, it's just a really frustrating time. I know that a lot of people really also love this operating system the way that I did. And I've got so many of these phones. I mean, I'm going to have a collection. I've got my BlackBerry Porsche P9983. I've got my Z30. And if you never got a chance to use one of these, the BlackBerry Z30, best software typing experience ever in the history of mankind. It was just so good. Everybody thought, well, BlackBerry, they're really good at making keyboards. Why make a software keyboard? But software keyboards back then were like going through the dark times. There were so many different brands that were trying to establish their identity in this realm. And that's how iPhone beat everybody. When I first picked up an iPhone and tried typing on it versus the LG phone that I had that had no real operating system, that had no real browser. When I picked up the Motorola phone, when I picked up my Sony Ericsson, there were all these different phones that were out there, but they just couldn't compete in software, in hardware. But if you were going to have an all touchscreen keyboard experience, it had to be better than a keyboard. And nobody could pull that off until iPhone. And then BlackBerry came along with their BlackBerry keyboard and blew it out of the water. It was so good. It was so good, and it still is to this day. So if you never got a Z30, also a great phone. But I've got a Z10, I got a Z30, I've got my Porsche P9983 based off the Q10, I've got my BlackBerry Q10 in white and gold. I've got my BlackBerry Leap here, which was also a really good phone. It came, at the end of BlackBerry 10. And then this guy right here, which is probably the most iconic BlackBerry 10 device, because this phone really stood out. Like, people saw this phone, love it, hate it, indifferent. It made a statement. And this is the last, I think, real statement phone that BlackBerry made. Some people could argue that with the Priv, but the Priv, of course, was an Android-based device. So, I mean, this one right here is the last 100% BlackBerry 10 DNA statement phone that they made. And it was just such an elegant piece of hardware. It had the power. That was what was missing a little bit when you came to the Z10 and the Q10. They didn't quite have the horsepower to run a lot of the Android apps. So when they came back to the drawing board and they're like, hey, we need something that can compete on the world stage. We need something that can still run the Android apps, but run them well and give people the horsepower that they need, but also bigger screen. Everybody wanted a bigger screen. When it came to the Q10, it had a 3.1 inch screen, which was fine for traditional BlackBerrians. But if you wanted to bring other people over, you needed to give them a reason not to go and pick up their Android phone. And I think this phone finally did, and it had really good sales like the first week. And then, after that, I don't really know. But ultimately, yes, what killed BlackBerry? I mean, there's a lot of different things. We can argue about this. Was it the lack of apps? Was it the failure to adopt? Was it the lack of social media? And I think social media, more than anything, killed it. I mean, if we could have had a native Instagram, if we could have had a native Pinterest, if we could have had a native Twitter, we had native Twitter, but I mean, if we could have held on to those and got more developers on board, everybody wanted social media. They wanted to be on Instagram. They wanted to be on Pinterest. They wanted to be on WhatsApp. They wanted to be on all these different things, and there were not a lot of these available for BlackBerry 10, and you had to sideload them, especially with Instagram. We never even got an official client. I know we had WhatsApp as well, so don't try and deem me on that in the comments. I'm just illustrating things here. BlackBerry missed out on communication. See, they didn't realize everybody didn't want to send BlackBerry messages and text messages for the rest of their life. Everybody moved over. They moved over to Viber. They moved over to WhatsApp. They moved over to Instagram. People started communicating in DMs. It wasn't a dedicated chat message platform. It was a social media platform that people messaged on the back end. It's like, hey, I saw your picture. Let me message you. Hey, I saw this. Oh, we have something in common. People started finding other ways to communicate. And communication wasn't just text. It was pictures. It was videos. It was images. It was all sorts of these other things. And by and large, I think that's what really drew a lot of people away. See, nobody really ever looked to BlackBerry for gaming. Although they did get some decent games on there. And I mean, I still love my Dead Space game made by EA that was on my BlackBerry Playbook. But, there are a lot of different reasons and a lot of different... It's just a lot when it comes to BlackBerry 10. But unfortunately, the end of an era started in January of 2013 and is now going to end in January of 2022. So it made it almost 10 years. 9 years is a long time. And I can remember when it came out, I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And I remember they were working on this new operating system. It was supposed to rival the iPhone and Apple and all this stuff. And it got mothballed, it got delayed, it got postponed. I finally broke down and bought a Samsung Galaxy S3, which I really liked. It was like the first Android phone that was like, wow, this is really good. And like 6 months later, or 5 months later, whatever it was, BlackBerry 10 came out. The day it came in, I went down to the T-Mobile store and I traded in my S3 for my Z10. 1000% happy, never looked back. I was so happy to have the new BlackBerry 10 device. And now, of course, these are all going to be relegated to a museum. But ultimately, BlackBerry made a really good attempt at it, and they tried, and just so many different things. Businesses were going away from the enterprise model. Bring your own device became a thing because people didn't want to manage. They didn't want to have managed phone services anymore. They didn't want to be buying phones for people. It was like, hey, just use your own phone. So then they found a way to offload the whole BES thing and not have to worry about paying for that stuff anymore, because the BES license fees were expensive. They weren't cheap. So managed IT structure went away from phones. Enterprise wasn't doing bulk purchases, and you still had government areas. I mean, there's a lot of people, I think, in government that might still be using these. They were at least a couple years ago. And it just kind of lost traction in a lot of places, and then of course ultimately the app support killed it in the consumer market. So it is what it is. Thankfully, we've got the BlackBerry mobile devices to tide us over for right now. We're still waiting on the onward mobility BlackBerry. Whenever we get some more information on that, it was supposed to be here already, it's not. And these BlackBerry 10 devices, if not even being killed off by BlackBerry, are being killed off by the fact that, well, no voice over LTE. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, they're all moving that way, getting rid of 2G and 3G. So even if BlackBerry 10 were still going to work, we would lose it because of that. So unfortunately, when January gets here, I mean, I don't see them extending this any longer. I mean, there's not really much point in it because you're not going to be able to use them on the network. So if you can't use a phone on a network, what's really the point? I mean, you'll probably still be able to use it in some limited capacity on Wi-Fi. I don't know what end of life is going to mean with regard to the device that's in your hand. You might still be able to use some apps. You might still be able to use some stuff already installed on your phone. Of course, if you download something that doesn't require internet-based services and it's a standalone app on your phone, you can use it. But I don't know. It's just frustrating because it was so good. It was so revolutionary too. And it got dinged so hard. I remember people like, oh, it's complicated. People don't get it. People don't understand the gestures. And then, a couple years later, enter stage left, we get Android and iPhone that are all using the same swipe gestures. It was like swipe up, swipe left, swipe up and left, peek, poke. There was all these different things, and people are like, no. People, but I mean reviewers in the common, the tech industry. They're like, no. People don't like that. It's too complicated. There's too many steps. Nobody likes this. They want their home button. They want their back button. Well, where's it all at now, guys? It's gone because you all copied BlackBerry 10. So I guess BlackBerry 10 will live on in the inspiration of what it has changed in the operating system world, and I believe was very revolutionary when it came out. It's still very, very good today. But it's just, there were so many frustrating things about it that ended up being really, really big in the consumer phone world. And now look at iOS, you look at Android, you look at BlackBerry, and you just have to sit there and kind of chuckle to yourself because it's like, I know where that came from. And it was so good. So, I hate to say this, I hate to talk about this, I'm not going to drag it on any longer, but unfortunately, BlackBerry 10, it's been going the way of the dodo for a while. I mean, we've got the sentence date is, January of 2022, so it's not too far on the horizon. Enjoy using them while you still can. I know some people are. I know it's a tough decision that we're going to have to move over to different phones here as that date approaches, as they get kicked off the carriers. I've been getting a lot of messages from people saying, hey, AT&T's kicking mine off. AT&T's sending me a phone, and they're going to activate it automatically in 30 days if I don't do it myself. And, it's just not a good landscape right now, and we had hoped that that new BlackBerry would be here, and it's not. And hopefully we'll get some more information on that soon. But I just wanted to take a minute to recognize all the great things in the phones that BlackBerry 10 brought to the market, the things they changed in the industry, and we loved it so much. I mean, I did, I still do, and I've got all these phones. I've been collecting them for years. They're just such amazing phones that really have not been replaced out in the landscape. I mean, it's great if you want a phone that looks like this. There's like a million of those, but where's this? And where's this? So hopefully the new BlackBerry 5G from Onward Mobility will be super amazing, and I can add it to my collection, and we can all be collectively happy with what we have. But sucks to be those of us who love BlackBerry 10. So that's all I've got in this video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section. I'll get back with you. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.